What's going on? Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be working on the E36 and we're going to be installing a roll cage. Now it's been quite some time since I've been looking for a roll cage, pretty much ever since my last track day with the car. I decided that this was a much needed upgrade for safety because last time I went on the track I did have a little spin out where I went into some dirt, and basically at that point I figured there was a chance that I could roll the car. And because we are doing high performance driving on the track, it's a good idea to always have all the safety features that you can put in the car. So that is why we're doing this upgrade today. Now when looking for a roll cage or roll bar for your car, there's some things to consider. They have full cages which cover the entire interior of the car. They have half cages, kind of like this one, and then they have roll bars, which this technically classifies under because this is just basically roll protection. It obviously goes up and over the roof of the car, and then there's some support beams in the back that attach to the rear kind of tub, if you will, of the back of the E36. Now this cage I found on Facebook Marketplace used because I was kind of hoping to find a good deal. I was able to pick this up for around $500, and I think it's in great condition for that price, considering this new is roughly about $800 to $1,000 if you're including the paint, the fire extinguisher, and shipping it to your door. Now ideally when I was searching for a roll bar, I was looking for something that was not kind of bolt together like this is. As you can see, most of the connections here are all bolt up connections all the way around and even in the back as well. Just because I was kind of worried about some of the structural rigidity of it. Now this is one of the older versions, but this is a TC Klein Roll Bar. It's one of the older ones, you can tell because of the bolt up design. The new ones that they offer are all weld in at all the points except the rear two, I believe. And this cage only weighs 54 pounds with all the hardware and just as it sits here. So let's get started with installing the roll bar. I already moved some of the interior of the car, but we're going to try to leave the front seats in and see if we can just fold them forward and try and bring the roll bar in this way. Obviously I don't have any back seats, which is going to make this a lot easier, but I'm going to need to lift up some of the carpet so that when we go to drill the holes, we kind of can have a good idea of where the alignment is. And we're going to basically put the whole thing in and put those rear bars on, get it fit into place, and kind of see how it looks from there. So in order to actually fit the cage into the car, we're going to have to remove some of this lower carpeting because underneath you can see that there is some vent ducting. It's kind of hard plastic down here, as well as this wiring that runs underneath through that. So we're going to have to take up this carpet on both sides and remove that plastic ducting that goes underneath the carpet. And from that point, then we can put the carpet back down and put the cage in order to get our cutouts for the plates that mount to the floor. So it got pretty serious. As you can see, I took my shirt off because it was getting hot, but I had to remove the seats. In order to get the cage in, you have to tilt it at a certain angle, and it was going to damage the seats. So I didn't want to ruin my nice Vaders because I'm going to be selling those. So got all the seats out. Extremely dirty here on the carpet, so I'm going to have to clean that up afterwards. But now I think we can get the cage in by kind of going at a 45-degree angle, bringing it in and tilting it upright. So I'm going to give that a shot, see how this works. So after many attempts, we got the roll bar into the car. Now I just got to prep. There's one of these little bolts that, like studs, that pops out of the floor on both sides. I have to cut those off, and then we can get the kind of the rear tubing set up and get the cage into place and go from there. So I have the cage in its positions now. After quite a bit of measurements and adjusting, finally got it to where we want it to be. At this point, it's kind of dark out, so it's hard to tell, but we are drilling holes into the floor first, getting these 6 bolts lined up, and then we're going to work our way towards the back. The challenge was, because this is a bolt-up cage, some of the backing plates aren't lining up completely perfect against the wheel arches, but with a little bit of kind of bending them, it seemed to be better than it was before. But we're just going to send it anyway and see what this looks like after. So some of the hard parts when I was installing this cage last night with my friend was kind of getting it like measured evenly across the front and the back, and then as well as the left to right. So we were able to get it within millimeters as far as the left to right goes, but the depth in the car is perfectly symmetrical on both sides. And it kind of just barely sits behind the B-pillar here, which I think is good because we got it pretty much just as far as back as we could based off of the kind of design here, how it steps up. That way when I go to put the aftermarket passenger seat in, the seat can go back farther because this side doesn't have the indentation as the driver's side does. So I'm a little bit concerned that the seat may hit here if I don't have this as far back as possible. The way I have it now, I think we'll have plenty of room. There's the front and the back, and that still gives us maybe like a foot or so from the back of the aftermarket seat. One of the interesting things, as I mentioned earlier, was trying to get those back plates to kind of contour the wheel well as good as it could. I did have to kind of bend it down just slightly so that it made complete contact. And then once we put these back plates in up top there, it really sealed itself nice. I ended up putting the studs going up into the car just so that there's less space here for the wheel to hit in case I, fully collapse the suspension. But I think where that's sitting right now, I don't think I'll be making contact with the tire under any sort of compression on the track. But overall, I'm really happy with how this looks. It looks pretty awesome in the car. I think the red goes really well with the silver, as well as kind of the red accents on the aftermarket wheels. I think eventually I'd like to kind of cover this up in the rear with some kind of rear seat delete panels, just so it looks a lot cleaner back here. I kind of want to go with the hard motorsports ones, just so it blends well with the door cards that I already have, rather than just the complete flat panels. But other than that, I'm going to finish kind of swapping out some of these nuts, because the ones that it came with have been taken on and off a couple times, and the nylock portion is kind of gone, and these started to kind of strip a little bit. So I want to make sure I have fresh hardware on all these corners, just so that this cage is for sure secure. So I've got all the bolts torqued down, and everything is kind of how it's going to be in the back. I need to get that fire extinguisher recharged though, or replaced. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the installation and how it went. Like I mentioned earlier, those back plates were just a little challenging to get fit perfect. But these ones fit in really well, and I just kind of spray painted underneath with some anti-rust stuff and some sealant, so that don't have to worry about any rusting on the car or any water getting in on the front and back. Other than that, as you can see, there's some marks here, which I think I'm going to grab some red paint and kind of just touch a lot of these little spots up, just so it looks a lot better. But it looks great in the car. Please excuse the fact that the car is super dirty. But other than that, I think it looks awesome with the red cage, and the silver stands out super nice. I think in the future, when I go to do my rear subframe, I'm going to have some extra bars welded in that go straight back to the rear subframe, as well as some straight bars that kind of do an X and tie into the rear, those rear struts. But other than that, this is pretty much going to be it for the installation. At this point is when you would go and reinstall your stock seats if you're going to reuse them. As you may have noticed a little bit earlier in the video, we've got some OMP seats that we're going to throw in the car, but we're going to do that on another video as well. In that video, I have to remove all the carpet, so this is going to be a whole nother day and another project. But other than that, that's going to be it for the installation. If you guys want a roll bar like this yourselves, I'll go ahead and throw my favorite one down in the description below, because this one's discontinued. But other than that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.